As always, would love for you to be a part of the conversation. It's interactive. We have a guest joining us, but I'll let you know how you can be a part of it. WhatsApp number is 0809 4440981. And you can also tweet at Smooth981. We're streaming live on our YouTube channel as well, so you can catch the live stream on Smooth981. That's the channel on YouTube, and don't forget to subscribe. Now, this morning we are talking about Nigeria starting to distribute 75,000 naira, I beg your pardon, to poor families. And there is, of course, a budget plan for this. Our guest this morning is Samson Owolabi, Associate Research and Portfolio Management, Zedcrest Wealth. Good morning, Samson, and welcome.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right.
So, Sam, just quickly get us into this conversation where you said that this 25,000 naira to Nigerians at the low end of the income scale. To backtrack, according to the finance minister, this year into the administration, so it's a year already. Is this a case of better late than never? And knowing that at some point the humanitarian affairs ministry that was in charge at some point had the EMS person suspended, so it's like back on track again.
Yeah, well, so thank you for that. Well, I'll just say that the federal government is just trying to do something, let's say, just to mitigate the effect of the hardship that's in the country right now. I do not think it is related to the previous humanitarian minister, or maybe it's a case of better late than never. I just think that given the fact that we have the labor union trying to embark on a strike. In fact, they've started the strike today, and it's just the government also understanding that the hike in interest rates is a major issue that they need to do something to complement people about, and also just to show the labor congress also that they are working on something that is just to bolster the economic standard of people. I think that's the major reason why they are doing it.
So you are the economist, and so if my elementary knowledge of economics still sticks, and it goes where it talks about at some point inflation can become when you have too much money in circulation chasing fewer goods, i.e. tomatoes and pepper, for example. So look at this now, 75,000 naira will be going out to as much as, let's say, 15 million households. Don't you have the fear of inflation being triggered by this?
Well, it's something that has to be considered also. Is also a factor that might also form another basis for, let's say, an uptrend in inflation. Because when you look at the money, when you look at the figures that we have for the money supply, you realize that there has been an increase in these figures, and even though there's always a lag in the data that is shared by the CBN, you realize that the money supply figures was around 96.96 and 96.97 trillion respectively for the money supply 2 and money supply 3. And we all know that the money supply 2 is the money in circulation plus money markets and instruments, the ones that are within a year, and the money supply 3 is the money is M2 and also long-term or fixed deposit funds. Now, when you look at these figures, you realize that those figures are significantly high, and they grew by 5% each for the month of April. Now, you understand the fact that CBN hiked interest rate based on these figures. Also, they considered it when they were hiking interest rates, and you realize that there was a decline in month-to-month inflation when they hiked that interest rate. But one thing you also have to look at is that if we are injecting this money into the economy, that is 75,000, if I'm correct, multiplied by 15 million, and that is going to be 1.125 trillion. Now, when you look at that figure, you realize that it's a significant amount of money entering the financial system. Yes, it might have an effect on inflation, but I do not think it's going to have a full-blown effect on inflation.
All right, thank you, Samson. Now, still on money matters, the NLC, the unions basically are striking or are set to strike from today. This is over the minimum wage. To say the government has not moved forward with negotiations. How are you assessing this?
Well, it's a sad one, given the fact that the labor union have to go on a strike again. This is something that has been like a trend in the Nigerian economy. Almost every government have seen the labor union embark on a strike, which is not really good for the economy. And when you look at it, you realize that they are somehow justified to an extent, because the minimum wage that the government was proposing was not really like significant for people. And when I looked at it, when I made some findings, I realized that the 60,000 is even the total pay, not the basic pay. Now, if 60,000 is the total pay, that means that it accommodates allowances and some other things. If you look at all these figures, you realize that it's just way too small when you look at the current state of living of the Nigerians. So it's not enough. That's just the gospel truth. It is not enough for someone to thrive in this economy, given the fact that inflation is at close like 33%. So it is not enough.
Now, 615,000, that's a figure that has sort of made its way around. It's floating around. Some people believe that the NLC is just maybe aiming high, perhaps a bit too high. In your opinion, what would be a reasonable minimum wage?
Okay, well, that is a very dicey question. And I believe that is might be rhetorical, because you can't really say that this is going to be like the minimum wage. For example, let me give this example now. Someone that is earning like 500,000 flat net pay in Lagos, his spending pattern is going to be significantly different from someone that is earning 500,000 in Ibadan or maybe Abeokuta, or maybe another state in the south, maybe Rivers, or maybe in Kano, because what they are going to be spending on in terms of transportation and food is going to be different. Each state have their own food inflation and their own different varieties in inflation. So when you look at these figures, you will see that there is a disparity in that. So you can't really say that a particular amount is going to be enough. Also, the CBN, the federal government rather, they need to look into their books, look at how buoyant and how sustainable this is. It's not just about giving people the money. You have to look at the fact that is it obtainable? Is it something that the federal government can do for a very long time? Is it sustainable? So when you look at that, you also look at the average lifestyle of citizens. So there has to be like an in-depth analysis into these figures before we can conclude that this is going to be the perfect minimum wage. But from now, I can't really say that this amount is going to be the perfect minimum wage. But we still, with good analysis, we can have something reasonable for people.
Right. On the basis of sustainability you raised, I would just like us to circle back a bit to touch on the 75,000 naira to some of the households, 12 million households. For how long? Is this a one-off payment, or, do you have an idea how long the government can sustain this?
Well, from the looks of things, it's just like at least like a one-off payment for people. And the painful part is that we have been through this before. That's the painful part of it. We've been through it before. Nigeria is not, I'm not sure that we have the adequate data capturing system to be able to target the main household that really need these funds. I know that some household, this particular amount is going to go a long way for them. But if it doesn't get to them, there is a major issue. We have people in the rural areas that the government might not really be able to like go to them and just able to get it there. And there's this corruption in the system, in which, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, where we have a lot of like palliative being hoarded and not reaching the people. So if those systems, if those corruption, if those let's say those anomalies still exist, then the motive of this initiative, no matter how good and how like considerate it can be, the main aim might be jeopardized.
You're listening to Business Express on Smooth 98.1. Our guest is Samson Owolabi, Associate Research and Portfolio Management, Zedcrest Wealth. And let us know if you have any thoughts with regards to the conversation at hand. We're talking about the government to start distribution of 75,000 naira to poor families. The WhatsApp number is 0809 4440981. You can also tweet at Smooth981. The hashtag is Business Express 981. And we're also streaming live on YouTube, so you can catch that live stream smooth and 981. Let's talk about the National Assembly bill to basically amend the 2007 CBN Act. Now, there's been a lot of pressure from the business community, and that has sort of halted this bill from advancing. Can you tell us why?
Okay, the move by the National Assembly is quite, let's say, bogus, and it's something that might be too complicated because saying that the bill that they passed is not really going to be, let's say, from the logical view of things and also from the economical view of things, might not really be the best move for us currently at the moment, because the independence of the CBN is extremely important. So anything that is going to affect the independence of the CBN, then it's going to be like a major issue. There's a part where, in as much as economics and politics are intertwined, there's a part that you need to draw the line. You need to know that, okay, this is where economics have to like start, and this is where politics must stop. So it is very important that we understand that the independence of the CBN is very important and key.
So this takes us to, well, if we look at what the financial year looks like, it's almost like a game of football, a game of two halves. So we are in the second half already, So speaking of the CBN, inflation in Nigeria is still climbing, and the benchmark rate is also rising. So we are now in the second quarter, the second half of the year. Do you see inflation, this pressure easing anytime soon?
Okay, yeah, month-to-month inflation, I believe, is going to ease, but year-on-year, I believe it's still going to see an uptrend, or albeit it's going to be at a minimum, or let's say at a tepid pace. That's because there are structural issues causing inflation, and there are some issues that are also based on the fact that it's based on policies that has been implemented. So, in as much as we look at the policy side, and we see that maybe they are trying to like resolve that, we also have to look at the structural issue side. So, and when the structural issues remain, when they are persistent, structural issues such as insecurity, food logistics problem, transporting food from one region of the country to another. When you look at factors concerning, the exchange rate also, when you look at some other factors around, let's say transportation, the cost of fuel, you realize the fact that these are the major issues that are causing inflation to still see that uptrend. So I do not think that inflation is going to reduce in a very like maybe considerate level, but it's just going to be we are going to see the reduction at a tepid pace.
All right, let's see the messages coming through. Fine Oluboroko says, all these monetary palliatives is a no-no for me. The impact in stemming inflation is quite insignificant, and if care is not taken, it can actually increase inflation. In just about 30 seconds, Samson, what do you think the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu should be doing in the next part of the year?
Oh well, it's let's see, it's quite simple. I think that number one, we should be looking at inflation. Number two, we should be looking at FX volatility, how to like ensure that the CBN has enough supply of dollars in the markets. And when we look at insecurity also is a major issue that we need to look at. Government needs to like set up something concerning insecurity. Food inflation also is something that we need to look at. I believe that food palliative might go a long way compared to let's say the cash. We also having to like reduce the prices of some food items which are basic for some people and for the general populace is something that is going to go a long way. Also, infrastructural development is a key one. And finally, I believe that we need to have more prudence in the government spending. There has to be this level of prudence in that space. We need to be accountable for every penny that we spend.
Let's on this note, we want to say thank you to Samson Owolabi, Associate Research and Portfolio Management, Zedcrest Wealth. Have yourself a great Monday.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
That is it for Business Express.
Brought to you by
Yeah, bye-bye.